I'm obsessed with these shoes.
Oh,
I love
thank you.
these.
This is my favorite, honestly.
Those are the best.
Yeah, the brand is like, they're Swedish. They're called Troentorps.
Dope.
Yeah, and they're just, these things are amazing. This is my second pair. I have a black pair. It's a different silhouette, but still clogs. But I like this pair a lot, this whole split toe thing with the laces. The laces aren't functional, obviously, like it doesn't help me do anything, but they're sick though. I love these shoes a lot.
I remember when I was like in 8th grade, we went to Amsterdam.
Okay.
And I guess their version of it is called klompas or something. Okay. And so me and my mom got a pair of these, and I have no idea where those shoes are now.
Now, were they the pair that like are full wood, like the top is wood too, or was it leather up here?
It was, I cannot even remember. I feel like maybe they were leather.
Okay.
I cannot remember. But I was like, ever since, like, I think I didn't appreciate them enough when I had them.
No, I mean, well, the reason I got into them, I mean, like, my mom, like, she wanted me to wear clogs, like, years ago. And I was like, nah, you're bugging. Like, there's no way. I can't do it. And you're not about to get me, like,
you're not about to have me out here looking.
Exactly. You're not about to have me out here looking crazy. There's no way. And then I was in New York 2 years ago. I was just, like, walking around. I just kept seeing clogs on women.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yo, those look so fire.
And like with the mules, like those are like more like the...
Yeah, and I just kept seeing women in clogs. And I was like, yo, those are fire. And I was just like, I don't know if I can do it, but I'm going to try. So I just looked up men's clogs and I found this black pair that was like sleek, looked like a pair of boots. And I was like, all right, let me just see what this is like. I bought them, put it on, and I was like, oh, actually, I kind of like these. And then like I started wearing them, people started getting compliments on them and stuff. I was like, okay, I think this might be a thing.
Yeah.
And then I got another pair. They actually hooked me up with this pair, the brand, which was dope.
So dope.
Yeah, so
those are fire.
I was grateful. I love these shoes a lot. They're so comfortable too.
It is crazy, like how much when you get older, how much your style changes.
Oh, for sure.
I feel like that's happened to me so many times where like there's a thing or a trend that I'm just like not into. Like you could not pay me to wear whatever it is, like capes or something. And then I'll get older and like you'll look at it, it's like hearing a song. It's like off an album and like you feel like it's the throwaway song and you're like you listen to it again, you're like,
he's like, wait a second.
I feel like I've done that with so many different kinds of like, styles.
Music, man, is powerful. But yeah, how are you?
I'm doing good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How's your spirit? How's your mind? How's your heart?
It's good. I was really encouraged this week. I think spiritually, like that's why I love Wednesdays. I was just in my church's Wednesday noon prayer. And it's a time for us to like pray for our city, pray for just people type in the chat like things that they're praying for and believing for, and like it's a time of the day that really resets me. Yeah. I think I can get so hyper focused on like what is missing in my life and like what I need and what I'm focused on that I forget, or it's not even I forget to pray for others. It's like we are so...
It just comes second because you're worried about everything that's going on in your own life.
Exactly. Yeah. And so it does force me to get into the habit because I mean, that's even like the structure of the Lord's Prayer. Like you pray for others first. Yeah. And as you pray for others, like your own personal needs will be met. And you don't pray for others so that your needs get met. Right. But it puts you, I mean, we're supposed to put others first. Yeah. So it is really getting me into that practice. But that's something that just really encourages me and like resets my spirit like midweek. So like, coming from that, I'm like, I felt good.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. I'm happy to hear that. That's really good. Yeah, I think, what you said about praying for others is definitely important. It's something that, like, I don't do enough of unless it's, like, for Tosha or, like, my immediate family or friends. But even still sometimes, I'm, like, so focused on myself. And you realize that, like, a lot of the word does encourage us to pray for other people and, like, talks about the importance of community. And, it's, a big reason why I like having these conversations because, it kind of, it strengthens that, it sets the foundation for community and why it's so important. But yeah, I'm glad to hear that you're doing well. Yeah. That makes me happy, that warms my heart. I love when my friends are doing good, because it's super important.
And I think, it's all a choice, I feel like where it's good is we decide that we're going to be like, I could honestly, I could drone on about so many things. I'm like, I wish we're this way, or like things that, you know, maybe have gone wrong this week, that definitely have gone wrong this week.
For sure.
But yeah, it's a heart posture, like choosing to be okay, like choosing to know that despite some hiccups that I've experienced this week, or sometimes this week where I felt like spiritually drained or just not in a great headspace, like remembering like the God I serve, remembering that I'm blessed, like I'm good. I don't, my problems are so small. They really are. That's a good way to
put it. Yeah. And so. I find myself in a similar headspace and thought process of understanding that like the things that I'm going through and the things that I'm experiencing are exactly what you said. Like they're small. Like they might seem big in the moment, but even thinking outside of spiritually and like our relationship with God and who He is and how big He is and what He's capable of, like thinking about the problems that we face in like our entire lifespan. It's like, this is just a moment. It's just so small. Like, it could mean the world, or feels like it makes such a big difference for that time that you're going through it, which it could, depending on, you know, who else is involved in that problem or how you feel about it emotionally. But all in all, you know, they are all just small parts of what we're going through, small parts of our life. And like you said, so small compared to how big our God is and what He's capable of doing. Like, and seeing that and being reminded of that from what He's done in the past is a big thing for me. Like, understand, like looking back and being like, dang, like I'm over here tripping about this thing, but you did this once before already. And even if you didn't do it for me, I know you've done it for other people that I have in my life. So why am I stressing about it so much? And it seems like you got that on lock right now.
No, that's so funny that you say that, because I think that is where I do struggle the absolute most.
Wow.
I think, I mean, as we're human, so we forget the things that God has delivered us from. Like, if I look back, I'm a person, like I have a tendency to worry. And I think it does come from a place that I haven't fully relinquished control in some areas of my life. And that's another thing that I have to work on every day. And because I want to have control over these things, there are things that I just, if it's not going the way that I want it to go, it kind of throws me off. And so when I look back on my life and wanting to see, like, this looks like a situation that I'm not going to get out of, or this looks like a situation that is looking really bleak, and then I have to look at my life and it's like, I ask myself, and it's a question, this is not just for just me talking to you, I really ask myself this question is, where has God failed you? Where has He failed you? And I can't think of a situation, like, I've gone through stuff, but like I'm still here. And I think that God has done really big and amazing things. Like, He has surpassed my expectations in so many areas of my life. So it's like, it's not God, it's not luck. Like, you know, people say the phrase, like, your luck has run out. Like, my luck can't run, because I don't rely on luck. I like rely on God. And so that's something that I have to remember. It's like, God has not failed you. You have not been, you don't have to worry about finances. When have you been homeless? You don't have to worry about where this next paycheck is going to come, because God has always provided for you. Like, there's not been an area where I have struggled, really, when I think about it. So it's like, why do I get so worked up over these things when you've not experienced it?
I love that you say that, because I'm in a similar space right now where, like, I'm trying to remind myself of those same truths. Like, you know, being a creative, things aren't always so concrete. So sometimes there are those moments of like, okay, like, what do I need to do to make sure that my next check comes through, or what do I need to do to make sure that that I am moving on this next opportunity, or I'm creating a new opportunity for myself. And I had to have the same moment and sit back and look at myself and be like, I have never experienced anything that I'm afraid of. So why am I even afraid in the first place? Like, what is this fear that's setting in me right now, causing me to be so anxious about things that I have a little bit of control over, but not a lot of.
Yeah.
And I look back and I remember and I realize like the times in which I really just let go. It was like, God, you know the exact place that I'm in, financially, emotionally, relationally. You know where I'm at, and you know what my needs are. You know what my desires are. So I need you to provide.
Yeah.
And like you said, there's never been a moment in my life where I have literally like been scratching my head or homeless or like trying to figure out like what's coming next. Yeah, of course there's been moments where I'm like, okay, like when's this next job coming through? Like, okay, like how am I going to be able to afford this trip in 2 months or whatever? But he always makes it happen. Yeah. And that's such a good reminder as like I said, I'm going through that right now, trying to understand and remind myself of those truths and be like, I am taken care of.
Yeah. And
and that's so important and such a good place to be in. So that makes me happy too, like just knowing that you also have to understand that you're there, because it's an important place to be, and I don't think a lot of people have gotten there yet.
No.
And it's a journey. I mean, it takes a while to get there, and it's a walk, and it takes a level of confidence and security, not in your job or not in your abilities, but in Him.
Yeah. And
when you turn that over and you're like, this is not about me, like I don't have any control about this.
Yeah.
When you turn that over to Him, then you're just like, okay, cool. Like I'm gonna just sit back and I'm gonna let it play out, and what's for me will be for me.
Yeah.
And and what's not will not. And I hear this saying often, that let God open doors that no man can close, and close doors that no man can open.
Yeah. No,
and
that's good.
I try and remind myself of that, and understand and know that like He's still capable of doing that. So it's like if I'm sitting here waiting for an opportunity and I haven't gotten it yet because I'm not ready for it, it's not because I have to work harder or have to do more, because it's not up to me in the first place.
Yeah.
So, but I love that. But let's talk about you. Let's talk about you. Let's talk about you.
Yeah.
So, a lot of people know you because of who your father is, Tony Williams.
Yeah.
Amazing guy. I mean, from afar, I don't know him personally, but amazing guy from what I can see. But I want to talk about you, like, who is Jehireh? What does she love? What are the things that fuel and drive you?
Yeah.
Let's start there.
Yeah. So Jehireh. No, my passions, I would say, like, first and foremost, what I want to do with my life even is it's so crazy. I have really a passion for human rights. Like I've grown up and have been involved with so many different organizations, and I think I always felt like I had to choose. Like I have a family that's in music, that's in fashion, and so I remember when God was starting to reveal to me what it is that my purpose was, and I've gone through nothing has been linear. And so, like, growing up from a young age, I was focused on music. I was sure I was going to be a singer. Not that I don't want to be still. Like, music was always, like, first and foremost in my household. On my mom and my dad's side, my grandfather was a Cuban percussionist that played for Carlos Santana for 30 years. Wow. And then we have a lot of other musicians on my mom's side. And then literally everybody on my dad's side sings. Like everyone has some musical gift. So I was like, well, I have double portion. Like it's gonna be something that I do. And of course, like being the child of that or growing up in that, there is just the access to it. Like I grew up in studios. I grew up touring and doing all of that. So that was something that I was really passionate about. And as you know, like fashion and music really do go hand in hand.
Oh, for sure.
I was, like, started designing like leather bags when I was like in middle school, high school, and I was like, maybe I'm gonna do fashion. And then I remember my mom took this trip to India when I was in 8th grade, and I forgot what she ended up doing, a documentary.
Oh, wow.
And it was talking about just like the caste system in India, and like how, I think it was called How the Other World Lives, or How the Other Something Lives. And she came back, and being a part of that, like the women who went with her, they were all involved in like some sort of philanthropic endeavor, and so I was exposed to that.
Yeah.
And when we traveled growing up, we were not the people that did like the tourist thing, like with my dad touring with who he was touring with. You know, you could go to the nicest restaurants, like you could do all of those things, but we always wanted to connect with people that were local, like people that knew these areas, and
you get the best experience that way.
The best experiences. And so I loved like seeing how other people lived, like real people, everyday people. And I always just, I definitely have a heart for people. And so I remember like my first trip to Amsterdam, like I was in 8th grade, my parents took us to the red light district, and we were really exposed to those things, and it was something that just grew in my heart more and more and more, and we began getting involved with like anti-sex trafficking organizations. And so I remember about sophomore year of high school, I was applying for schools and was really trying to figure out, like, I have this passion for music, I have this passion for fashion, but I also like philanthropy, and I want to help people, and I want to work for an NGO or work for the government, and go into different countries and help where there is a need. Yeah. And I was like, well, God, how am I?
Yeah, we're gonna wait till the.
Yeah. Come on.
I'm blowing it. At first, I was like, okay, cool. That could be cool for like the little New York background noise. And that one just turned up.
Really like.
Oh God. So yeah, you were traveling and having experiences with the locals, which, you know, it's super important. I think that's the best way to travel. Like, don't get me wrong, I love me a good fancy restaurant. I love, you know, exploring, going out to all the best stores and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But there is something very homely about just sitting and getting engulfed in the culture, and you can only do that when you allow yourself to be or have experiences with the people that live there.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't travel like that because, like you said, it's hard to do. It's hard to, it can be hard to try and build a relationship with someone that lives a world so opposite of yours.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, continue, you know, the red light district and.
Yeah, so we were just super exposed. My parents would just show us things that really opened our eyes to what was really going on in different countries that we'd visit. So going to Amsterdam in 8th grade and going to the red light district and seeing every part of it. It wasn't just the fancy restaurants and the shopping. Like, you can do that anywhere, but to get those experiences, which is so funny because I know so many people that travel the way that we always did and could not speak a word in another language. Like, it's so funny how many people I'm able to connect with even now, because everywhere I go, I'm asking, like, how do I say this? How do I, you know, learning different parts of the language, and it is just a great way to connect with people, because even today, like, I'll say something like, okay, I speak a little bit of this, and people will be like so impressed, and it's because like, as you know, in American society, we put so much emphasis on people learning our culture, but we don't put a lot of emphasis on learning other people's culture. And so people typically are shocked to see somebody who cares. Right. Like, I want to learn about you. Yeah. Because we are so, what is it, like US centric. Yeah. So with that said, yeah, it was a growing passion to just learn about people, to learn about cultures, and wanting to get to a place where I wanted to serve and where I saw needs and saw just disparities in the way that people lived. Like, I wanted to make an impact. And so when it got to a point that I was like applying for schools in high school, applying for college, I kind of came to this crossroads. Like, do I want to pursue music? Do I want to pursue fashion? Do I want to pursue human rights? And I ultimately decided that, like, the best case scenario is that I would pursue human rights, and because no one can teach, like, I could always pursue music. Music was always going to be there. For sure. If I wanted to dive into fashion, I always had those resources, but I wanted to go to a really great school so I could work with like the best NGOs and get that experience, because that's just pretty much a linear path. Like you have to get that experience to be able to make an impact. And so I ended up going to Cornell, and that's where I studied human rights, human development. And my aim was to work for a non-governmental organization. And as I got older, I was like, I don't want to work in a job, like as you can see, like I don't look at myself and think I'm going to be wearing a suit and working for the State Department. Like I think I'm a bit too eccentric for that environment. And I felt like I was choosing one part of myself over the others that were just as important to me. So now I'm at a place where God really has given me a vision and a dream for my life where those three come together, like working with artists and spearheading campaigns that bring visibility to human rights efforts like around the world. There's a specific foundation that is really on my heart, that God put on my heart. I don't know if I'll say it now, but there's a foundation that I eventually want to work with. And I've created like a job that doesn't exist yet at the foundation, and I've actually pitched it to them. So that's really where I see myself going. And I think that's a part of the faith, because I think God really did give me a God dream. And where I am now, I'm like working in a very corporate job. I work with hedge funds. Like that cannot be further from what I want to do. Like literally the antithesis of human rights and like caring about people, really. And I often ask God, like, why this job? Like why here? How does this connect me? How does this align with what the vision that you planted in me? Like how am I supposed to get from here to there? This doesn't seem linear whatsoever. And so a big part of my life right now is trusting God, because I feel like, you know, even at my age, and I'm still pretty young, thinking like, well, I already feel disqualified. There are so many people that have worked in these jobs, have done this work, and here I am doing something that could not be further from that. God, how are you going to make this happen? And it's a complete reliance on Him and trust for Him to know that, like, wherever I am now, like, I love this saying, and I will say it and repeat it to myself every day to just keep my faith, is God doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the called. And so that's been a big part of my journey, and because it doesn't really look like what I think it's supposed to look like. But that's the hard part. That's the hard part. And God, I feel like He shows us one step at a time. It's like you get one or the other. He'll either show you the next step or show you the end result, but He doesn't give you both. I tell
that to people all the time. And like, I have so many things I want to point out, but first I have to touch on that. I tell people that all the time, because what happens with me is, like, I feel like God speaks to me by giving me the end result. And
me too.
I consider myself to be such a patient person. But then when it comes down to things that I'm passionate about, or like my relationship, like there's just, which I'm also passionate about. So it's like, when it comes down to things that like I'm truly passionate about, like all that patient stuff goes out the window.
And I don't have any at all.
And I'm like, God, I need you to like tell me when this is gonna happen, how it's gonna happen, because you sitting here telling me like David and Goliath is gonna be a multi-million-dollar brand, like, okay, I hear you, but I don't see that right now, and I need you to like start giving me the steps on how this is gonna pan out, because I believe you, I do, but I need some steps, and I can't sit here and act like He doesn't, you know, provide me inspiration and the things to like be able to get there, because He absolutely does. But I 100% have always believed in that truth, in the fact that like God either gives you the end or He gives you step by step. But either way, you're going to be in question about something. If you know the end result, you're going to be in question about how you're going to get there. If you know the step by step, you're going to be in question about the ending of it. But that's good. But let's So as you were dealing with, or I should say, as you were finding out who you were and what your calling was, how much of a battle was that? Like how tough was it to go against the grain of what you knew due to who your family is and the opportunities that were probably at an arm's reach away? It's like, I'm sure at a snap of a finger you could be singing with whoever.
Yeah.
You know, you could have an album right now, like an EP. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like with knowing, and the worst, not the worst part, but the hardest part about that is knowing that you have the skill to do it. It's like, you know, okay, I'm, you know, speaking as you, like, you know, I'm skilled. I can be a singer, but I know God is calling me to something else. But all these opportunities, and it could be easy if I just went and sang, or, you know, or produced or did music because of all these things right here. But I know that you're calling me to something else. So what did that battle look like for you? Like how tough was that, trying to decipher God's voice in that decision-making process and His calling, and what you knew? Yeah.
So I will say the initial decision was very easy. For me, I was like, this is a no-brainer. I can do music if I want to do music. I can pursue fashion if I want to pursue fashion, because that's an arm's reach. Let me go and get the resources that I don't have. I didn't know anyone that was a dean of admissions at an Ivy League institution, so I had to go and do that. So I had to study my behind off in high school to get to where I wanted to go. But I think where the sacrifice came was post that. So once I chose that, there were just opportunities that I just didn't have access to anymore. The proximity of my family wasn't there. I was all the way in Ithaca, New York. Couldn't be further from anything that was happening in the world of my family. And because I had school, I missed a lot. And I was like, you know, this is totally worth it. Like, at the end of this, like, I'll have my credentials and I'll just be able to decide and figure out what's next. And I think that's even hard now, because I didn't end up getting, you know, the job or being in a position that I thought I was going to get. I'm not working in human rights right now. I'm not in an NGO. And where I am now, it wasn't even a position that I applied for. It was one that God literally orchestrated, and it just fell into my lap. And to this day, I question, why am I here? How does this tie into what I want to do? And, you know, I'm working in an office, you know, day to day, not anymore because of COVID, but
of course.
I'm looking at, you know, my family doing things. Like, out of my family, I am the one that lives the most normal life. Like, I'll be in the office, like, working with my hedge fund clients, and then I'll, like, check Instagram, and my parents are on a yacht, or my brother's on a private jet headed to some other country, and I'm like, cool. When is my life gonna start? And it's having a patience and a trust that in my timing, in God's timing, that my life is going to come together. And it's not going to come, it is coming together for my good. And I think it's the biggest battle that I'm even fighting with myself in choosing and making a decision is comparing. Like, I want, and it's not that I want those things. I want to be walking in my calling, and that doesn't need to be me doing or living this luxurious, extraordinary life. It's me doing the things that I feel like God put on my heart, and when I'm not there and I feel like, well, God's made a way for these people, or you know, why I'm like the and I don't feel like the black sheep, but for me to, you know, come from what I come from and be living like pretty normal is a challenge. And just knowing and believing and trusting that, God, in your timing, I'm going to be where you said I'm going to be, and I'm going to trust you until then. And what I love about the story of David and Goliath, I don't think any story could apply more to my life, and this is why, is because David had that exact experience. He
Yeah.
had siblings that were in the presence of a king,
Right.
that were out there doing the work that he felt like he was called to do. But what I loved about David, who is, you know, the man after God's own heart, is that he was working in the field. Like, he was stewarding
Yeah.
over sheep, which
Yeah.
is the least glamorous job that anybody could be doing. And so he wasn't comparing himself to his brothers.
No, not at all.
He wasn't saying, well, they're doing this and we come from the same family, so why am I living this life and they're out here doing, you know, the most heroic job that anybody could be doing.
Right.
He was content where he was at, and he trusted God's plan, and not that he was like, you know, God told me that I'm going to be this, I'm going to do that. He was just doing what he was content where God had placed him.
You know, one thing that I love about the story and the part in this space that you've created is that even after he got his calling, even after he knew that he was called to be a king, he went back in the field.
He went back to the field.
He went back to the field and finished doing what his assignment was.
Right.
He knew that, okay, yes, I'm going to be a king. I'm now anointed to do such, but I still have a job to do.
Right.
My father's asked me and made me head of these sheep. I need to go back out in the, like, basically, like, you know, he gets called in.
Yeah,
and he's
by
told
the king
that,
himself.
And he gets called in. He's told, you're going to be anointed as king. Like, God has led me here because you're the one. He's like, okay, dope. Now can I go back and finish what I'm doing?
Right.
Like, and I think that that's so fire. Like, how do you even? Because I know if it was me.
I'm sorry, sheep. It's been cool. It's been real.
Right, exactly.
I gotta be king.
Like, yo, this whole sheep thing was cool. Dad, it's about another 6 or 7 of us, right? Somebody else can do that. Cause
right.
I'm about
Switch
to
one
go
of my
do
brothers
thing.
out.
Right. I'm about to go do my thing. He just told me I'm the king. What you mean? Like, I should be free to go, right?
Right.
No, this man was like, all right, that's dope. I'm gonna go back out and finish what I'm doing. And I think that's so powerful and something that, like, we all can learn from. And I see you doing that, and I think that that's really, really dope, because comparison culture is at an all-time high.
Oh my gosh,
and like
yeah.
with social media, like I talk about social media all the time, like it's the devil. It's not, but you know, it does create a lot of issues for people. But with social media, you know, that's where it breeds,
Yeah.
because you get to see so many different people, and the people that you're seeing, or the people that are advertised, are those that are doing the best, or doing the
Yeah.
most. You know what I mean?
Right.
So when you're constantly seeing that, and then for you even closer, it's people in your family. You're like, okay, like, y'all are out here flying these places, going to all these extravagant events, hanging out with this person, and you're sitting back having to understand or search for an understanding of why you are where you are.
Yeah.
And I think that that's so important and so beautiful that you've gotten so comfortable in your faith and where you are with your relationship with God, that you're like, I know everything is working out. I know that you know the desires of my heart, and I know
Yeah.
that I am destined for this, but right now it's not my time. And that's a really, really dope place to be in. And it's doing something for me right now, like, because I'm in that same boat. I have friends that have these clothing lines, and I, you know, friends that are stylists and doing all these great things, and I'm like, yo, I could be doing that. Like,
Yeah.
you know, on my, I don't want to say a bucket list, but on one of my, you know, something that I want to have on my resume, I guess. You know, I want to be a stylist for, like, Justin Bieber and Chance the Rapper. Like,
Yeah.
you know, I want to be their head stylist.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at the people that are in their position now. I'm not saying they're doing a bad job. You know, that's never the type of person that I am, but I'm looking at them just like, I could do that.
Yeah.
You know, like, God, I know that you know that I want to do this, and I know that everything that I want isn't good for me, but I don't see anything wrong with this.
Right.
It's like, how can I get to a space like this? Same thing with these conversations. Like, you know, I want to have, like, really good, deep talks with my friends, but how do I get these to be, you know, bigger? Like, how do I, because like I said, God always gives me the end. Always gives me the end.
Yeah.
And I know, and I see it, but this is like, how long is it going to take? You know
You're
what I
right.
mean? And it's the same thing. And it, you know, bringing it back to the story, it's like David, he no longer had to wait or find out like how long this is going to take.
Yeah.
God sit and gave him and told him like, this is who you are and this is what you're going to be, instead of him being like, okay, cool, like, so when do I start? He's like, let me finish the work that I'm doing.
Yeah.
Because I know that what I'm doing right now is important for me to even get there. And I think that that's so dope, because even before, even after he got that calling, he still had to go and serve Saul and play music for him.
You're right.
So it's like, even still, there was still, like, he didn't just go from tending to the sheep to doing his thing. It was like he was playing music for Saul, then killed Goliath, and then got his, but there was still so much that happened in between then.
Right.
And that's the part that I think both you and I and a lot of people are at, where we're in this in-between space.
Yeah.
And we have to be so diligent and so strong and not comparing ourselves to other people's journeys.
Yeah.
Because, and this is one thing that I try to do to remind myself of somebody else's journey, but you don't know what they had to do to get there.
Right.
Or what
The
they're
Goliaths
sacrificing.
they had to-
You know, you don't know the Goliaths that they had to deal with to get there.
Yeah.
You don't know anything about their journey. All you see is where they are right now.
Right.
So don't envy what anybody else is doing, and just be good with where you are in the journey that you're experiencing.
Yeah.
Because I tell you right now, I'd rather be battling my Goliaths than anybody else's.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
No.
And I think another big part of it is knowing that where you're at does serve a purpose. Like, I'm sure even in that context, like, David could have been like, tending to sheep, becoming king. How does that line up?
Mm-hmm.
Playing music for Saul, becoming king. God, make it make sense.
Right.
And I think we miss out on so much of the lessons that God wants us to get in the seasons that we're in, that prepare us for where we're supposed to go. And we sit here and we lament, like, going through the seasons that we're going through.
Yeah.
And until we get to a place where we're fully experiencing where God has us and being content and learning and getting something out of every season for God to promote us to the next season, we elongate that time, because God is like, I've sent you here for a reason, to get something out of this. Like, there's a skill that you're learning.
Yeah.
There's a practice that you're learning. There's things within yourself that I'm refining, that I'm fine tuning, that I'm stripping, that I'm pruning from you.
Yeah.
And I can't move you to the next space until you get those lessons, because I think how amazing God is he doesn't give us anything that we're not ready for.
Absolutely.
And 100%. If he knew that, you know, if we were to get everything that we wanted when we wanted it, we'd squander it.
Yeah.
We'd ruin it. And God doesn't let us fail in public. He refines us in private, in obscurity, so that when we get to those places, we show an example of who God is. Yeah.
And only he gets the glory for it, because he took you through everything that you had to experience in order to get there.
Right.
And that's so beautiful and so profound.
Yeah. And if we could stop complaining, like, I think I find myself, like, even now, like, I am so ready to be in the place that God has shown me. And me, in my impatience, I'm not fully, sometimes I struggle with, like, thinking, like, there is something for me in this season that I'm supposed to be learning and getting from this. If I could stop complaining for 5 minutes, I'll see it and I'll get it and I'll experience it. Then God can move me on to the next place.
Right.
But he can't do that while I'm complaining.
Yeah.
And I think David did such a good job of that.
Yeah. So would you say that your Goliath right now is the comparison, or would you say it's more so the understanding or finding purpose within where you are?
I think it's all of it. I think there is no one Goliath. I think the Goliath is definitely the comparison, but I think what it really comes from is myself. What I loved about even the story of David and Goliath is David was had so much faith in God and knew who he was. Goliath really, I think it paints an illustration, but I think we read David and Goliath and think, oh, Goliath was this other external person. He was this external factor that was in the way. But I think so much of the time we are our own Goliaths. Like, I don't think even in my current role, Like, it's not my managers, it's not the people that don't want to see me win. I think, like, no matter who doesn't want to see me win, no matter who is or what is standing in my way, when I believe and know who I am and know who God is, those things are just distractions. And I think another one of my big Goliaths is like, it is myself. I think that those things that serve as that, I think the enemy will kind of trick me into thinking it's the other people or the people outside of me, but they almost serve more so as mirrors. It's like
100%.
If I feel like this person is doubting me or doesn't want me to win, it makes me feel like maybe I'm not capable, and it just like, it's like a ricochet. It's like, if I can get this person outside of her to make her feel this way about herself, she'll do all the rest of the work. She'll self-sabotage.
Exactly.
She'll get to a place where she doesn't believe in herself and doesn't have faith. And so I think, it's also learning about getting out of my own way. I think I can be my biggest Goliath, because if the enemy can use other people to get in my own head, I'll do the work for him.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's about getting out of my own way and remembering who I am through Christ, and remembering foremost who Christ is. Like, I love, like, if God is for me, who can be against me? If God is for me, the people who are outside of me can do nothing. My God is bigger than any of those external circumstances.
Yeah, that's good. I think that David, and I think that we're all David figuratively, but I think that before he even got to Goliath, he had to defeat a Goliath within his own mind.
Yeah.
Because he had to know that he was even capable of doing the work. And I would be oblivious to sit here and assume that he didn't go through his own mental battle of whether or not he was capable.
Yeah.
The text makes it feel like it was obvious and it was an instant thing, like, oh, I'll do it, fine.
Right.
But
yeah.
you can't, as a human, I know that from the time he put that armor on and then took it off to the time where he was walking and then ended up in the battlefield, there was things probably trying to attack his mind that he was not capable of doing it. And because he defeated himself before he got to Goliath physically, he was able to do it.
Right.
So I think having that understanding of knowing that a lot of our Goliaths are within our own selves first, then that can change and shift our perception of how big or how scary the Goliaths are that we face in the world.
Yeah.
So I love that. So with the journey that you're on, do you feel confident in saying that you are in a space where you are navigating and defeating those Goliaths? And if so, how are you doing it?
Yeah, it's a constant battle. Like, I think getting up and picking up your sword it's a constant thing, and I love that, because it does really say in the Bible, like, every day put on your armor, put on the armor of Christ, because it's real. Like, you're fighting battles every day, battles within yourself, battles that are external. And I think I even love, like, there's so much, like, if you read the Bible, I wonder how many times the word daily pops up, because I think we pray one time and think, like, now it's done, I've done the work, I'm good. But reminding myself is a daily thing. Praying about it is a daily thing, and asking God to give me the strength to defeat whatever it is that I'm going to face that day. And it's a constant reminder and a faith exercise to tell myself and believe and choose to have faith that God is who he says he is, that the plan that he has promised is still to come. Like, it's coming, and everything every day is working out for my greater good, and knowing that God is with me in all of those trials and struggles, and even within myself when I'm ready to give up and ready to throw in the towel, and when my faith is literally hanging by a thread. Some days I do have those days, and so the way that I am fighting those Goliaths is like through constant, one, it's prayer. It's getting to a headspace where I do believe that every day, because I think as humans, like there's so many things in our life that tell us otherwise.
Always.
I think, and it's what you choose to believe. Like I can choose to believe that God is good, even when my situation looks bleak, or when I have a really hard day at work. Like there's enough in the world that could tell you that God isn't who he says he is, and that's what faith is. It's choosing to believe in those moments, that God is real, that God is fighting our battles, that he is equipping us, that he's strengthening us, that he has a greater purpose for us. And so it's also a part of it is like dying to myself daily, is taking myself off the throne. I think as humans, as flesh, like we just inherently are apart from God. Our flesh does not want to be in communion with God every day, and so we put ourselves on the throne. By nature, it's who we are as humans. And so it's a daily practice to choose not to be the Lord of my own life, and saying, God, I trust your plan. Your plan is bigger than mine, and even when I can't see what you're doing, and even when my situation doesn't look like what you said, what the end result is going to be, I choose to trust you and not try to take things into my own control. Because I think that's another thing. It's like when we don't see God moving at our pace, we want to make things happen for ourselves.
All the time.
Like so many times, it's like when God has told me not to move yet, I'm like, maybe I need to move. Maybe if, we try to tell ourselves like, oh, like God doesn't move, unless we move first. So like, let me get to moving.
Right.
And God's like, I didn't tell you to move. And try to make things happen in my own power.
That's what I was saying earlier about like the patience thing, and like understanding that, and that's a really good point, that just because things are still doesn't mean he's calling you to move. He could be calling you to just be still. To just be still. And it's funny because I feel like, as we're talking about that, I feel like I knew God was calling me to be still in a moment, and I felt I was being still for too long, and I moved. Yeah. And not that God doesn't and isn't going to course correct, but it's still like I look back and I'm just like, I could have probably just chilled out for like a little bit longer. Well, it's funny. You remember like a couple, and I know it's something because I learned it in college, and also remember learning it in high school, like the Marshmallow task. So it's a psychological, or it's a task that like psychological researchers would give to children, and it's like about delayed gratification. Okay. So I know like Kylie did it with Stormy, and it became like a popularized thing. Yes, I know what you're talking about. Yeah. They'll give you the treat. Yes. Yeah. They'll give you the treat, and they'll say, hey, if you wait, I need you to wait for it. 5 minutes, I'm gonna be back. Or they won't even give like a time. It's like, just wait until I come back. Yes. And you can either have this one, but if you wait, I'll give you 5. And I think we watch these videos, and they're so cute. You want to see it, like, can these children really wait? But they're so real to like adults. And God looks at us like that, like, I'm gonna my sweet little babies, like I'm gonna, if you wait on this, I'll give you more. And we are those impatient children that cannot delay our gratification. Knowing that we'll get more. Like, I know if I just wait on God, he'll go above and beyond than what I asked for. But so many times we are the child that eats the marshmallow before our parents come back. Like we're so guilty of that. That's so true. So that's like, those are the daily things that I have to do to defeat my Goliaths. It's a daily practice. It's not something that you do. Like, unlike David, and if you look at the story, like, it wasn't just Goliath. Like, he had to defeat Saul. Like, Saul was out to kill him. He had to fight other battles. And so we take the Goliath, and throughout David's whole kingship and his reign, he was fighting many Goliaths, and that's what our life is. It's all the things that we're having to fight daily. Yeah, that's good. Well, I think it's a good place to end. That was really that was amazing. I think that I resonated with a lot of that, and understanding, being reminded of those things is really powerful, and knowing and, being blessed by the importance of community and having people remind you of the things that you already knew.
Yeah.
And the things that you even tell others, but to sit here and receive it also is really good and like really beautiful thing.
Yeah.
So thank you for that and your wisdom in that area, because that whole, what's it called, the Marshmallow Project?
The Marshmallow task.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have failed that task a multitude of times.
Yeah.
And I've passed, but
yeah.
it's funny because it doesn't stop when you're a kid. Like that whole visual test, it doesn't stop once you get older.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. You still have to sit here and be patient enough to wait for things to happen. And but I'm just so grateful that God, no matter what you decide to do, always has our greater interest in mind.
Yeah.
And I'm really just blessed and happy that He, no matter what choices I make, no matter what I decide to do, He's always going to seek it out for my good.
Yeah.
And that's the beautiful part about it for me, is understanding that, like, yeah, no, this wasn't exactly what you had in mind, but the fact that He's still willing to work with it.
Yeah.
I think that's the cool part. Knowing like, no, this isn't really what I wanted you to do, but I can still get you there.
Yeah,
I can still see you through. Yeah, it's like I can still see you through this.
Yeah.
You didn't go the way that I wanted you to go, and that's fine, because I knew you weren't anyway. But as I continue to work on you, I'm going to still get you there.
Yeah.
And
God has already accounted for all of those things.
Exactly.
Which gives me a peace. And I think I read something by Pastor Christine Kane. It's like we end up being so still. We get paralyzed by making decisions because we feel like we're going to make the wrong one.
Mm-hmm.
But our God is big enough, like you said, to course correct. And He does use everything. And of course, we want to be obedient to God. That's the first and really only priority. But God has accounted for us being humans, for us being impatient, for us thinking that we know better.
Yeah.
And He's already He's like, I knew you were gonna do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna use that. You probably maybe added a little bit more time. You probably went through some things that you didn't have to go through.
Yeah.
But I'm going to use that, and because of that, your story is going to be better, or it's going to be greater. It's going to touch more people.
Yeah.
Because I think that's another thing. Like, we give ourselves Goliaths. I think they're Goliaths that God gives to us to strengthen us, but we also do a great job of putting Goliaths in our own lives
100%.
when we don't have to.
Yeah.
But I'm grateful for even those things where, not that I'm grateful if I was disobedient, but knowing that when I fight other Goliaths, even when I didn't have to fight them, that somebody else is fighting those, and because I've gone and done it, and with God, like, somebody else is encouraged because those are the same Goliaths that they might be facing, and they can look at my testimony and look at my story and say, like, if Jehireh can get through that, if she can fight that, and if she can do that with God, then I can do it too. And
that's it.
Yeah.
That's the one. Wow. Well, thank you so much.
No, thank you.
This is really cool. It's funny because, like, I realized I was preparing for this and everything. I was like, dang, like, I know Jehireh, but, like, I don't know Jehireh. Like, we haven't sat and, like, talked.
Yeah.
And this was, like, a really cool opportunity to do that. I think that you're a really dope person. The moment that we met, I was like, that's my sister from another mister.
No, literally. I was like, that's my whole sibling. Like, literally the week after we met, we were, like, sibling on each other's pictures on Instagram. I'm like, yeah, that's my brother.
Like, it's crazy. Like, so this is really cool, and it just aligned it even more purposely, in my opinion. And I'm so grateful that God put us on each other's paths in the way that He did. And I think it's going to be really fruitful. Yeah. So, I'm blessed by you, and I'm appreciative of you. And
likewise.
I'm really looking forward to how this is all going to continue to blossom.
Yeah, and I love conversations like these, because I think I was talking to you, but I think through our conversations, and like you said, through community, like this encouraged me. It reminded me of things, like things that I need to practice daily, and or just encouraging myself, like through speaking these things. Like I think we have like epiphanies and revelations when we speak with others, and so I'm like, okay, like now go out and everything that you just said, live it.
Yeah, it's like, wait a second, I got the juice. I can figure this out. Like God gave me the recipe, because I'm over here, like I said earlier, like, you know, you go and you tell people about how, or you give people tips and things that you've learned and gained knowledge of and wisdom of over the, you know, the course of your journey and your walk, and then you're able to share that with people. But you don't realize that while you're sharing it, you're also reminding yourself of it and how beneficial that is. So for
that, thank you.
No, for sure. 100%.
This has been awesome.
Yeah, definitely.